Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're overseeing a massive construction project. Maybe a new subway system, a huge hospital complex, or an innovative bridge.
Right.
With so many moving parts, so many different people involved, disputes are almost, well, inevitable, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much comes with the territory on big jobs.
The question really isn't if they'll happen, but how you navigate them. How do you keep things moving without getting completely bogged down in endless, expensive legal fights?
Exactly.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the, frankly, fascinating world of dispute resolution in construction contracts. And we're looking specifically through the lens of the FIDIC framework.
The FIDIC, yeah. The International Federation of Consulting Engineers. Their standard contracts are, well, they're pretty much the gold standard globally for these complex international projects.
Right.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how these systems have changed over time. They've really evolved.
How?
Well, they've moved beyond just resolving conflicts after they happened actively trying to prevent them in the first place, which honestly is a game changer for actually getting these projects finished successfully.
Okay, prevention, not just cure.
Precisely. So our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut to understanding this evolution. We'll look at the different kinds of dispute boards, what they actually do, their roles, and how the latest FID rules, especially with some insights from their 2024 practice notes, are really designed to keep these huge projects on track.
So you, the listener, will walk away with a clear idea of why these mechanisms aren't just, boring technical details in a contract.
Absolutely. They're essential tools for efficient project delivery and, importantly, for managing the relationships between the parties, too.
Okay, so let's jump right into that journey then. This shift from what used to be called dispute adjudication boards, or DABs,
DBs, yeah.
to the newer dispute avoidance adjudication boards, DABs, you said it's more than just adding an A.
Oh, much more. It's a whole different philosophy, really. It signals a fundamental shift.
So where did this idea, this shift towards avoidance, really start?
Well, if we connect it to the bigger picture, you look back at earlier contracts like the 1999 Green Book, it often used what's called an ad hoc adjudicator.
Ad hoc meaning?
Meaning they were only appointed after a dispute actually popped up. So the focus was reactive. It was mainly about solving a specific problem quickly and hopefully cost effectively, especially for maybe smaller or more repetitive types of work.
Got it, reactive.
Then you had the 2005 Pink Book. It used a generic DB term for dispute board, but it started to kind of subtly reinforce this idea of an avoidance role. But the real paradigm shift, the moment avoidance became front and center, was the FIDI 2017 Red Book.
Okay, 2017.
Yeah, that's when the DAA, the Dispute Avoidance Adjudication Board, was formally introduced. It literally puts avoidance right there in the name and makes it a core function. That marked a really significant move towards proactive engagement.
So the goal isn't just cleaning up the mess after it happens anymore,
Right.
but actually preventing the mess from forming to begin with. That feels like a massive change in mindset for an industry that, let's be honest, can often seem pretty focused on disputes.
It really is like moving from being a reactive firefighter to more of a proactive safety inspector, maybe.
Yeah, I like that. So this brings up a really practical point then. What's the actual difference between an ad hoc board and a standing board in practice? You mentioned the 2024 practice note sheds light on this.
It does, yeah, very clearly. An ad hoc DB dispute board is only put together after a dispute has already arisen. Its main job is resolution.
Okay.
And its mission, you could say, usually ends once it gives its decision. Now, it can be really effective at stopping a dispute from escalating all the way to arbitration, which saves a lot of time and money, for sure. But it's just not set up for prevention.
So using your firefighter analogy again, the ad hoc board is like calling 911 once the building's already on fire. They're great at putting it out, but they weren't there beforehand checking the wiring.
That's a perfect analogy. Yeah. Now, a standing DB or DAB, that's different. It's a constant presence. It's there throughout the entire project lifecycle.
From day one.
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
This continuous engagement means they really maintain an up-to-the-minute understanding of how the project's going, what the challenges are, the relationship dynamics, everything. So their core function becomes true dispute avoidance. And this active, ongoing role, it doesn't just save time and cost, though it does that too. Crucially, it helps preserve the working relationship between the employer and the contractor.
Which is huge on long projects, right?
Absolutely huge. Think about it. These projects can run for years, Often the parties might work together again, maintaining trust and goodwill. That's invaluable. It's worth way more than just avoiding a single legal fee.
That definitely sounds like a healthier, more sustainable approach for these massive long-term jobs. It's like having a dedicated project coach on site.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Someone who's always watching, anticipating, helping the team sort of navigate potential bumps before they become full-blown crises. It's not just about rules, but about, well, collaboration.
And because they're already completely up to speed on the project, the history, the issues, if a disagreement does still need a formal decision, a standing DAAB can handle it much more efficiently.
Makes sense. They don't need weeks just to get caught up.
Exactly. And this is why FIDIC now strongly recommends opting for a standing DAAB for, the best chance of a successful project outcome. It's really seen as an investment in stability and efficiency.
Okay, so given all these benefits, it sounds like the way to go. How do you actually get one of these powerful DAABs set up? Who appoints them? What's the structure?
Right. The practicalities. Well, the FIDIC 2017 general conditions, they lay this out pretty clearly. It's usually in subclause 21.1. Essentially, the parties, the employer, and the contractor jointly appoint the DAAB member or members.
Jointly. That's important.
Very. And it has to happen within a specific time frame. Often it's 28 days after the contractor gets the official letter of acceptance.
Okay. And is one person or a team?
It can be either a sole member or a board of 3 members. That's usually agreed up front in the contract data section. If it's not specified, though, the default under the 2017 forms is 3 members.
3 heads are often better than 1, I suppose. More perspectives.
That's the idea, and the 2024 practice note actually highlights that. A 3-member DAAB offers collegiality is the term they use.
Collegiality.
Yeah, it means the members can discuss issues, they can challenge each other's viewpoints, bounce ideas around, which often leads to more robust, more authoritative decisions. Feels more considered, perhaps.
But I imagine 3 costs more than 1.
It certainly does. So a sole member definitely has advantages, too. Cost is 1. It's usually quicker to get a single person appointed and up and running. And scheduling meetings is obviously much easier with 1 person than coordinating 3 busy diaries. That speed can be critical, especially if you need urgent help with dispute avoidance.
So what drives that decision then, 1 member or 3? What should project teams be thinking about?
Well, project size and value are often the biggest factors. For instance, the 2023 World Bank Standard Procurement Document, which uses FIDA forms, actually mandates a 3-member board for any contract over $50 million US.
Okay, so there can be external requirements too.
Definitely. Beyond cost and value, you look at the complexity of the work itself. Are there highly technical aspects? You might need multiple areas of expertise.
Right, like 1 engineer, maybe 1 quantity surveyor, maybe a lawyer.
Potentially, yeah. Or different engineering specialisms. The required fields of expertise is a key factor. And also the project duration. A longer, more complex project might lean towards 3 members.
And where do these people come from? Is there a list?
Often, yes. The members are frequently selected from a list that's actually included in the contract data itself, agreed by the parties beforehand. Or sometimes they might draw from the official FIDI president's list of approved dispute adjudicators. And the 2024 practice note really stresses how important it is to carefully think about and agree on that contractual list right at the start. Getting it right then can prevent big arguments or delays in actually appointing the DAAB later on.
It really sounds like getting the right people, the right expertise, making sure they're actually available when needed, and that's absolutely crucial from day one. It's kind of foundational to making the whole DAAB system work effectively.
Couldn't agree more. It sets the stage for everything else.
So once the DAAB is appointed, they're ready to go. What are they actually doing day to day or maybe month to month to live up to this promise of avoiding and resolving disputes? What are the ground rules they operate under?
Right, their operational mode. The general conditions and also the specific DAAB procedural rules, they define this mandate quite clearly. The DAAB's main role, as we said, is twofold: dispute, avoidance, and resolution.
Avoidance first, ideally.
Ideally, yes. So this means DAAB members have an obligation to be available. They need to be knowledgeable about the contract itself, the actual site conditions, and how the project is progressing.
So it's not a passive role at all?
Not at all. It often involves regular site visits, scheduled meetings with both the employer and the contractor, and crucially, they must maintain strict impartiality and confidentiality. They have to be seen as completely neutral.
So they're not just sitting back waiting for problems to be formally handed to them on a plate. They're actively monitoring the project's pulse, almost like, I don't know, an ongoing health check.
Exactly that. An ongoing health check is a great way to put it. And to enable this, both parties also have obligations. They have to cooperate in good faith, and they need to keep the DAB fully in the loop.
Ow. What do they share?
Critical documents, things like progress reports, the work programs or schedules, any instructions the engineer issues, payment certificates, basically the key project information. And the DIA itself, it's given pretty broad powers to do its job effectively. They can inspect the works directly, they can review and value claims if needed, they can request any necessary information from either party, and they can conduct meetings or even informal hearings to really understand the facts and make informed decisions or recommendations.
So all this allows them to stay deeply engaged.
Yes.
And hopefully spot potential issues or disagreements before they even have a chance to fester and escalate into actual formal disputes.
That's the core idea of the avoidance function, precisely.
Okay. But, despite everyone's best efforts at avoidance, inevitably, sometimes a disagreement does still pop up that needs a formal decision. So what's the structured path for resolving it under FID 2017?
Right. When avoidance hasn't quite worked or isn't enough, the process is designed with multiple layers, again, to encourage resolution early and keep the project moving. It typically kicks off with the engineer's initial role.
The engineer, not the DAB first.
No. The engineer is usually the first port of call under the contract for day-to-day administration. They act as kind of the first line of defense for disputes, too. They'll try to get the parties to agree on a specific matter or claim.
Okay, try to broker a deal.
Exactly. If that doesn't work, the engineer then makes a fair determination based on their assessment of the contract and the facts. And that determination, importantly, is binding on both parties, unless it's formally challenged.
Ah, okay. So what if a party isn't happy with what the engineer decided? They don't just have to lump it.
Not at all. That's the trigger point for the DAB to get formally involved in resolution. If a party is dissatisfied with the engineer's determination, they can issue what's called a notice of dissatisfaction, an NOD.
NOD. Okay.
Usually, they have 28 days to do this after receiving the engineer's determination. Issuing that NOD then allows them to formally refer the dispute to the DAB for its decision, and the DAB is then expected to issue its decision, typically within 42 days of receiving that referral.
42 days seems quite quick for complex issues.
It's intended to be efficient. Remember, the DAB should already be familiar with the project. And it's important to note, too, if the engineer, for whatever reason, fails to issue their determination within the time limit set in the contract,
Right.
then the matter is automatically considered a dispute ready for the DAB. You don't even need an NOD in that case. The system has these built-in mechanisms to prevent things from just getting stuck.
Okay, that makes sense. It keeps the process moving. But what if even the DAB's decision isn't the final word? Is there another chance, another off-ramp before you end up in, full-blown arbitration or court?
Yes, absolutely. There's a really crucial and sometimes overlooked step built into the 2017 contracts. Amicable settlement.
Amicable settlement.
Yeah. If a party is still dissatisfied even after the DAB has made its decision, they are typically required under the contract to first attempt to settle the dispute amicably with the other party before they can initiate arbitration.
How do they do that? Does FIDA say?
It doesn't prescribe the exact method. It just mandates the attempt. So this is where things like negotiation, or more formally, mediation, could be attempted. The key is that the parties have to genuinely try to find common ground and resolve it themselves one last time before escalating further. It's another chance to avoid that more adversarial, costly route.
So another filter in the system. And if that amicable settlement attempt fails, then it's finally off to arbitration, the last resort.
Generally, yes. Arbitration is usually the final stage specified in the NEA dispute resolution process. An arbitrator or an arbitral tribunal has the authority to review and, if necessary, revise both the engineer's determinations and the DAB's decisions.
So they can overturn previous decisions.
They can, yes. It's a fresh look. And it's also important to understand the teeth behind the earlier stages. If a party simply refuses to comply with an engineer's determination or a DA decision after it has become final and binding.
Right, if they just ignore it.
Exactly. The other party doesn't have to go back through the whole process. They can refer that specific failure to comply directly to arbitration. It provides a clear enforcement mechanism for those earlier decisions.
Okay. So it really does seem like the entire FIDIC system is meticulously designed, like a series of layers or maybe safety nets.
Yeah, safety nets is a good way to think about it.
Offering multiple opportunities for resolution before anyone has to hit that sort of big red button of formal arbitration?
That's definitely the philosophy behind it. Proactive avoidance first, then layered, efficient resolution steps.
Mm.
And just as a final point on process, it's worth noting that if, for some reason, the DIB isn't in place, maybe the appointment failed or it expired, there's usually a provision that allows disputes to go straight to arbitration in that scenario, bypassing the DIB and amicable settlement steps. It's a pragmatic fallback, for when the preferred mechanism isn't available.
Right, covers all bases.
Yeah.
So wrapping this up then, what does all this mean for you, the listener? Whether you're, a project manager deep in the trenches, a legal professional advising clients, or maybe just someone fascinated by how these huge global projects actually get built. We've covered quite a bit. We've journeyed through that evolution from the old DAABs to the really proactive DAABs. We've understood the strategic differences, big differences between ad hoc and standing boards.
Yeah, the proactive versus reactive.
Exactly. And we've navigated the details of how they're appointed, what they actually do day to day, and the structured steps for resolving disputes under FIDIC 2017, keeping those recent 2024 practice notes in mind, too.
Right.
And hopefully you can see how this isn't just about dry contract clauses. It's really about managing complex human efforts with foresight and fairness, all to keep the world's biggest, most important projects moving forward.
And maybe this raises a broader question for you to think about. If these effective dispute avoidance and resolution systems, like the 50 DAABs, are proving so crucial for managing risk, for preserving vital relationships, and just ensuring basic efficiency in complex construction, what other kinds of intricate long-term projects, or maybe even broader collaborations, maybe completely outside engineering, could genuinely benefit from adopting similar avoidance-first models? Where else could this philosophy make a real difference?
It's definitely something to mull over. A very interesting thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of construction contracts and dispute boards. Until next time, keep digging for those insights.